And there's no gymnasium. And no TV. And no news. And the first month was like torture because you were so used to having all this stimulus from so many different sources, and all of a sudden, you didn't have it. And once a week at the school, they'd take vans and we'd load everybody up, go down the mountain, do grocery shopping, and take care of errands, every Friday. And the first month, everybody was on those vans. And then, a couple weeks in, less people. About 4 weeks in, less people. By the second month, we were drawing straws as to who was the unlucky person who had to go down the mountain and go into the city to go grocery shopping so we'd have food to eat. And instead of everybody going, it was the one unlucky person, and we went from taking 3 vans down to 1 because no one wanted to leave the mountain. No one wanted to go down. And later on, as we approached, we made it through November, December, or actually October, November, and got through Thanksgiving. None of us left for Thanksgiving because the nearest airport was about a 45-minute drive and no one had the money to leave, so we all stayed together for Thanksgiving and shared it. They divided us up and we all went to different professors' houses in small groups and had Thanksgiving. And by the time Thanksgiving was done, we got into December, it had probably been about a month and a half to 2 months before since last I had actually gone into civilization. And we did, Fridays was our work day, and our work day you'd be splitting wood, hauling wood, because we heated all of our homes with logs. You'd be mending fences. I did trailblazing, stuff like that. So you were doing this rugged, physical, challenging work. And of course, us guys, none of us shaved from when we got there. And you wore clothes that were utilitarian. And so on a whim, beginning of December, early, like first week of December, a group of us guys thought, maybe we should go to the mall. And I grew up a mall rat, so I was familiar with the mall. I hadn't been to something like that in a long time. So after work day, all scruffy, we cleaned up a little bit, put on our nicest, flannel shirt or nicest sweatshirt, and jeans, all wearing work boots because you didn't wear regular shoes anymore. You wore work boots because you were up on the side of a mountain. And we drove the 45 minutes down to a place called Medford Falls to the mall. And we were burly. We probably didn't smell as nice as we did at other points in our life. And we walked into this mall and we started walking around. And I remember walking into the first store, and it's a store I used to go into and think had really cool stuff, and we're walking in and we're looking at it, and how our lives had changed is that everything in the cabin we lived in had a purpose, or it wasn't there. They were couch, chair, coffee table, stove that heated the whole cabin. In the kitchen were the utensils. There was no microwave. We had a stove, and every utensil we used in some way. We would bake our own bread from scratch. We would spend hours preparing food and fixing meals together. There was no garbage disposal. There was a compost bucket, so when your compost bucket got filled, you walked down to the chicken coop and you gave the compost to the chickens, so the chickens would have something to eat. And then later, they'd bring, one of the professors would come by with eggs that the chickens had laid, and you could get a batch of eggs, and you had these real fresh brown eggs, and it was really kind of neat. But everything had its place. If you wanted to have heat, the last person up would have to stock the stove, and that would get you till about 3 or 4 in the morning. You better have warm blankets because the heat's done around 3 or 4 in the morning, and whoever got up first, their first job was they had to get the fire going, and get the thing heated again. And so everything, it became utility, and we a couple of us walk into the store, and it's all decorative knickknacks. Beautiful decorative knickknacks. And we're walking around and we're looking in there, and everything we're looking at, we're like, there's no point to that other than sitting it somewhere and letting it sit there, and maybe you look at it and enjoy it, maybe you don't. But that's its whole purpose. And we walked into a clothing store and realized, well, you can't wear that splitting wood. You can't wear that blazing a trail. Well, that won't work. And we walked into an entire clothing store where the clothes would only work for trying to look good in a situation where you weren't doing anything. And we're sitting there looking at this going, wow, this is really weird. And as we kept walking through, go store after store, we quit going into stores because we discovered that we couldn't find a store with anything that really had anything that any of us needed. Maybe a few things we might have wanted. And after a while, it started weighing on us, and it got to the point where we went to the cafeteria and we're looking around, and we're realizing that almost everybody in this mall was mad or grumpy, was walking around with a frown. And you could hear people talking like, well, he wants that. I don't want to get him that, but that's what he wants, so I'm going to get it for him anyway. And we're sitting there going, wow. And it was just amazing, the negativity. We started talking about it. And this 80-year-old couple comes and sits with us and says, we noticed the same thing. And they had been watching the whole crowd, and they're like, we were just looking for anyone with a smile. And couldn't find anyone in the whole mall with a smile. And so here we were, a bunch of 20-something guys, burly beards, worn clothes, sitting at a table with this 80-year-old couple, talking about how sad it was to see all these angry, upset, disgruntled people walking around buying for stuff they didn't want to buy for people, and doing it anyway. And that kind of shifted my thinking. What is Christmas really about? How do we really think about this? And started me thinking a little bit more about Advent. When I got back that night, spent a lot of time thinking about it and talking about it with the guys who had gone there with me. That next week, one of our classmates tried to take her life. And she had come there an extremely wounded person, and it was the first time in her life she was treated as a person and was starting to heal. And as she started to heal, her shame kicked in and said, there's no way God could care about you. There's no way God could love you. And in spite of getting these moments of grace and people who were not judging her but were accepting her, her shame became too much. And she tried to take her life. And I remember when the professors came and talked to us about what had happened. And it was one of those, I still call it a miracle because things that she did, she should not have lived through, but she did. And she got help. And she had to leave early, about a week before classes were done. And a couple of classmates had to fly with her because she couldn't go alone to get back home, and she was from the East Coast, and we were on the West Coast. And she was able to get back home into the care of a therapist who was waiting for her when she got off the plane. But it affected us all profoundly. And I remember when we finished our last class session, and we had a few days before everybody would leave, we gathered. By chance, they chose the cabin I lived in because our cabin had the most people still there. And we decided to have a Christmas party. And it was an interesting Christmas party. We stocked the stove, opened it up with flames glowing to light the room. We lit a few candles. We didn't turn on any lights. Someone brought a little tree about this big that had homemade paper ornaments they had made for it. And then whatever food and drink people had, they brought. So we had like a little bit of apple cider, we had hot chocolate, and we sat around most of the time, actually in silence, in the room, filling every seat on the floor, crammed into this tiny little living room. And once in a while we would sing a Christmas song. Once in a while we would laugh or joke about stuff that we had gone through together. We were both happy because we were done, sad because we were leaving, and struggling because we realized that we were all broken and that any one of us could have moved to the place that our classmate did, where they tried to take their life. And in that moment is when I think I realized what Advent was really about and what Christmas is really about. And that was the hope we found in realizing that we actually had each other in that moment. And that it wasn't about a fancy meal. We were passing around pieces of bread. We were passing around some leftover cheese. We were passing around crackers. We were passing around some weird stuff. And drinking cider and drinking hot cocoa. But we were doing it together in a group that had gone through a journey together and realized how fragile life could be and how easy it is to get lost in some of the struggles. And my whole perspective on what Christmas was changed. That it's not about gifts, it's not about the nostalgia but it's about people and those relationships we have with people. The passage for today is a traditional passage for the beginning of Advent. And Advent always starts with an extreme apocalyptic passage and then softens to the last Sunday of Advent to where it focuses on the nativity and getting ready for the birth of Jesus, which is an incredible image of a child being born in our midst. God being so humble that God was born a child in our midst. And the passage that the church chose in the lectionary for today comes in the last of Matthew's great sermons by Jesus, where Jesus gets up and teaches. There's 5 of them. Comes from the 5th. And in the 5th one, Jesus is focusing on end things, focusing in Matthew's gospel to get his followers ready at the last minute. And this passage is just a simple passage giving images of end things, images of what the reign of God may look like. And there's 2 little lines in it that are profound, that really get at the Advent season. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. And Advent is about what does it mean to make us ready. Those events I had out in Oregon have changed how I think about Christmas, how I think about Advent, and they change how I think about the people in my life. And when I hear these words about make yourself ready, it's not me having supplies in my house ready. It's me connecting with the people I care about and reminding them that I love them, that I care about them. It's about seeing that I have today to do it and don't assume I'll have tomorrow to do it. That's part of that hope in making ready. Part of seeing that I have today to focus on. And I need to say to the people I care about the things I need to say about today. And to do that every day. And to remember to look at every day as the day in which I need to say to them, and then do it. And say to them the things that matter. We had an interesting Thanksgiving, an unexpected Thanksgiving, as we were driving down. We got a phone call. It was my mom trying to get a hold of us. And she was not able to walk. Her legs weren't supporting her. She was dizzy when she tried to get up, and her heart was racing. And of course, our response was, so why are you calling us? We're in Wisconsin. It was, you need to get to a hospital. That's what hospitals are for. And she went to the hospital, and they found that her blood pressure meds were all off, and her whole system was out of whack. And she's still in the hospital from that. But it's one of those things where it reminds you the getting ready that Jesus is talking about is he made us to be relational people. He gave us the ability to connect with people around us. And the getting ready is are you ready in those relationships? Have you taken the time to continually tell the people in your life what they mean to you and that you care about them? That's the getting ready. That's what Advent is about. It's about seeing the opportunity to touch the people in our lives in a meaningful way. To not get into the patterns where we just go through life and forget. To not get into patterns where we put off things and not get to them. Some of the most profound moments I've had here over the past many years is being around a church member where they, as they were dying, got to have every friend come and visit. And then every family member come and visit. And when the last one had visited, they let go and within a day had died. To be able to connect with the people meaningfully, or to have gotten to a place where they weren't interacting with anyone, the whole family gets around them, and I've seen this multiple times, and all of a sudden they wake up and have a wonderful 2, 4, 6 hours interacting with the people they care about who happen to be around them as if nothing was wrong, and to be able to say they love them and they care about them, and then to go back to sleep and to die a day or two later. Those are powerful moments. That's what Advent is about. That's what God is calling us to be about. Take serious the relationships in the people in our life and prepare ourselves, meaning connect with them in the meaningful ways, always. And don't take for granted that that relationship will always be there. Care about them and let them know. Praise be to God. Let us pray.